To call the Biden administration a disaster would be outright unfair. It's worse than a disaster. It's a catastrophe, a crisis. It is apocalyptic. That's how bad it is. In this story from the Daily Mail, thousands of Haitians pour across the border at Del Rio as makeshift camp swells to 10,000 after Biden said illegal immigrants won't have to get vaccinated. And now the best part. On Thursday, the FAA issued a flight restriction banning drones from filming the growing camp. Oh, you got to cover this one up, Joe. This country's falling apart. I'm sorry. We've got New Hampshire now. 5 state reps I'm hearing are on board with seceding from the union. You've got a completely porous border that Joe Biden is doing nothing to get a hold of. It's almost like they are gutting this country on purpose. At a certain point, you say, to what end? Well, Joe Biden flew his son on Air Force Two to China for a private equity deal, so I'm pretty sure they're set no matter what happens. In the event the U.S. crumbles, rest assured these ultra elites will find safe haven, likely in China, where they will be new party members, unofficially perhaps. I can't believe the FAA did this ban, but check out what's going on. Thousands of migrants continue to converge in a makeshift camp under the bridge that connects Del Rio, Texas to Mexico's Ciudad Acuña in the latest border emergency and humanitarian crisis facing Joe Biden. The latest one, because it keeps happening. It's not even been a year yet. The camp has swelled to some 10,000 migrants on Thursday, with thousands seen wading across the Rio Grande River Valley. Most are Haitians, with some Cubans, Venezuelans, and Nicaraguans also present. Amid the surge of the highly infectious Delta variant, the crowded conditions of the camp also raised concerns about the possibility of COVID-19 outbreaks endangering the health of migrants. Biden, who imposed sweeping vaccination rules on many Americans last week, has admitted people who cross the border illegally won't be required to get vaccinated. And the Border Patrol has said that it has insufficient time and space to even test most migrants upon their arrival. Let's think about what that means. If these illegal immigrants are allowed to enter the country and then they are just shuffled about across the country and a COVID surge hits, who's most likely to die? Is that Joe Biden's plan? Is that his solution to the migrant crisis? Well, if you take them at their word, it would seem that's the only logical outcome, because when they apprehend these people, and they do, they could give them the vaccine. So maybe their answer is triage. We're not going to give illegal immigrants our precious vaccine. We need them for boosters in New York City. All right. Then how about you just don't let these people in? Answer these questions. If the migrants come in and do not get vaccinated, they are much, much more likely, 10 times more likely to get COVID and die. Now, I understand. I'm not saying, that sounds insane. The likelihood that these migrants catch COVID and die is actually still slim, very slim. But it is 10 times higher for those who are not vaccinated, according to the data we have from the CDC. And I'll just put it this way. There's no circumstance in which this looks good for the administration. Either you're letting first of all, they're letting all these people in. There you go. Here's what you can do. Close the border. Tell them to go home. Still, we've got progressive leftists saying, we can't send them home. They should be allowed here. Do you think vaccines are infinite? They want people to be vaccinated, yet when it comes to these people, they don't care. Just let them in. They say, after aerial drone images of the growing camp surfaced Thursday morning, the Federal Aviation Administration, overseen by Biden, by Pete Buttigieg, imposed a 2-week flight restriction banning drones from flying in the area, citing unspecified security concerns. Yeah, well, they don't control Mexican airspace, so I'm sure in Mexico people will still fly. Critics of the administration immediately accused them of censorship. It really is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it, Ted Cruz said, telling Fox News of the FAA ruling. The drone footage started this morning, and people across the country were horrified. And I guess the political operatives of the Biden White House saw that, Cruz said in an interview. The FAA told Daily Mail in a statement on Thursday night, the Border Patrol requested the temporary flight restriction due to drones interfering with law enforcement operations. Maybe. Food and water has been scarce in the makeshift camp. Around 20 migrants told Reuters, and temperatures have risen to around 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Reporters witnessed hundreds of migrants wading through the Rio Grande River and back into Mexico to stock up on essentials they say they are not receiving on the American side. Talk about broken and insane. They're going back and forth. Sorry, my friends. There's no republic. There's no border. They cross the river, wading through it, stay in America, cross back, pick up food and supplies, and come back. There's no border. None. You want to make the argument about these people crossing in and us saying, okay, we got to do something, fine. You want to make the argument that they're freely coming and going as they please? Yo, there are a lot of Ukrainians who would love to be in the United States right now, but they can't get visas. Well, wow. I suppose if you can just go to Mexico and walk back and forth, you ain't got nothing to worry about, do you? This is wrong. But does it, look, we're not a republic anymore, my friends. There's no borders. This is it. There's no borders. You can call it a border. You can say there are checkpoints. But when it's this porous, you may as well have none. Now, you'll still get people who are worried about the system, acting within the system, who will go to the checkpoints. But this is something else. Look at this. FAA drone restrictions. This says FDC, what is this? NOTAM. The FAA imposed a 2-week flight restriction, banning drones from flying in the air. You can see the map right here. They've banned just this area. It is an attempt to cover up what they're doing. These people are criminals, and what they're doing is destroying this country. They say, meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said Thursday that he directed state troopers and the Texas National Guard to shut down 6 points of entry along the southern border. Good for Texas. At the request of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, before reversing himself and blaming the confusion on the Biden administration. Well, I don't know what you're doing. 6 hours after U.S. Customs and Border Protection requested help from Texas to close ports of entry and secure the border, the Biden administration has now flip-flopped to a different strategy that abandons border security and instead makes it easier for people to cross illegally and for cartels to exploit the border. The Biden administration is in complete disarray and is handling the border crisis as badly as the evacuation from Afghanistan. I have directed the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas National Guard to maintain their presence at and around ports of entry to deter crossings, said the governor. Following the confusion, Rep. Chip Roy, a Texas Republican, called on Abbott to seize control of the border from the federal government. I agree. Abbott should immediately deploy National Guard and take control of the situation. I wonder if it's on purpose. Some people have asked this question of Joe Biden. He flew his son on Air Force Two to China for a private equity deal. Now, I'm not sure the deal went through, and even if it did, would we really know? And who knows what they talked about? But when you see something like that, and then you see the complete disaster that is Afghanistan, you have to wonder if it's on purpose, perhaps to help China. Now you can see, at a time when the U.S. is strained and in danger, Joe Biden is doing nothing to stop a flood of illegal immigration into the United States. He's burning the place to the ground. You have put in place a man who is setting fire to this country. And it's funny. They say we're the radicalized ones. I believe in the Constitution, the founding documents of this nation, the founding fathers, our system of governance. That's not radicalization. That's status quo. But they want revolution and destruction. And they say we're radicalized. We're in trouble. I don't think you can reason with people who have a warped reality based on algorithmic manipulation. They're trapped in the matrix. They're zombies. This is a nightmare. This is a disaster. Texas ought to start disregarding this president and start taking it into our own hands. In Texas, the need to secure the border of the United States for the welfare of the people, he told Fox News on Thursday night. We need to go forward and secure the border. The governor, the state of Texas, needs to own this and seal the border, said Roy. The squalid conditions in the makeshift camp in Del Rio are reflective of the humanitarian challenge facing Biden as border arrests hover around 20-year highs. U.S. authorities encountered more than 195,000 migrants at the Mexican border in August, according to government data released on Wednesday. Haiti is in the midst of its own humanitarian crisis after a magnitude 7.2 earthquake on August 14th, which killed more than 2,200 people and damaged or destroyed more than 100,000 homes. And I will tell you this. I empathize. I sympathize, and I would like to help these people. But are we a nation that simply says no borders, no restrictions, no controls? Come on in. That's not a tenable situation. We can't just tell everyone everywhere. Same thing that we were talking about with war. You know, we were talking to Cassandra Fairbanks at one point on Timcast IRL, and I was saying, like, look, with what China's doing with the Uyghur Muslims, maybe we need sanctions. And she said sanctions lead to war. And I'm like, well, we don't have to trade with them. And she said, there are many countries that are committing atrocities, enslaving people and torturing people and putting them in camps, and we don't talk about it. This is a manipulation. They want us to get into a conflict. And I said, fair point. Fair point. The same is true for the migrant crisis. When you see these leftists and they're like, what are we supposed to do for all these people? Just send them back. It's a disaster. And I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Like literally everybody in the country. Bernie Sanders said it. He said something like, my God, if we opened the borders, they would flood this country. We can't do it. The World Socialist website called Bernie Sanders a nationalist capitalist after he said this. They go on to say the impoverished country is also being racked by fresh political instability caused by the assassination of the former president, Jovenel Moise, in June, with the island's prime minister, Ariel Henry, since named as a suspect in the investigation. Yes. Are we going to have every single country in tumult just send their population here? A CBP official said that there were more than 6,000 migrants waiting under the bridge to be processed on Wednesday. But by Thursday night, that number had surged to more than 10,000, according to a Fox News reporter. As conditions in the squalid camp deteriorate, some migrants have been crossing back and forth into Mexico to bring back vital supplies. Ernesto, a 31-year-old Haitian migrant, slipped back into Mexico on Thursday to buy water and food for the fourth time, he said, since arriving in the U.S. on Monday morning. So how about we have them remain in Mexico, like Trump's policy? It's really amazing how we can now see the impact of what Trump wanted to do. Stay in Mexico while you await processing. Turns out these people are actually trying to go back into Mexico for resources, and they just want to come here to try and get in the country. Here's some photos. They say as conditions in the squalid camps deteriorate, some migrants have been crossing back and forth. Look at this. They're carrying stuff. They're going left and right. I'm impressed, to be honest. Migrants seeking asylum in the U.S. walk into the Rio Grande River near the International Bridge. I want you to understand something about refugees and migrants. If we did not have technology and this country was nothing but rock, would people come here? No. Would we say we had an obligation to help them? No. The issue is that we've succeeded. As a nation, we've become successful. We have resources and we have wealth. And because of that, people say we should help them. And because of that, everybody wants to come here. But what about staying in their own home and helping rebuild? What about taking on personal responsibility for your community? They don't have that. They're going to say Ernesto, who declined to give his surname to protect his identity, said he and his 3-year-old daughter had not been fed at the camp, where migrants are jostling for shade. Sometimes, he said, he runs to avoid Mexican migration officials, but is usually not bothered by them. But now money is running out. Customs and Border Protection did not respond to questions of the number of people in Del Rio camp. Migrants showed Reuters tickets with numbers they had received from U.S. Border Patrol. Several said other migrants told them they could be stuck in the camp for up to 5 days. Border Patrol said in a statement, it was increasing staffing in Del Rio to facilitate a safe, humane, and orderly process. Drinking water, towels, and portable toilets have been provided, the statement added, while migrants wait to be transported to facilities. Biden, a Democrat who took office in January, yeah, we know that, has rolled back many of the hardline immigration measures of Donald Trump. But he has been caught between pro-migrant groups and some Democrats who have criticized him for not doing more to help migrants, and opponents who say his policies have encouraged illegal immigration, which is true. Look at this. Migrants seeking shade, have a makeshift tent. I'm impressed by the ingenuity. Look at this, man. More than 4,000 migrants under a bridge, but Thursday the number is more than 10,000. People are just sitting in the dirt. And this is why we don't do open borders. This is why we do remain in Mexico. And this is why we dissuade people from crossing. There was a photo that went viral. And it was of a little girl who died. And the left said, we blame the right and all that other stupid nonsense. Trump was the one telling them not to try and cross the desert or the river. Trump didn't tell them to do it. And they said, yeah, well, because he's getting strict on the border, they're panicking and rushing. And I'm like, you're evil. Donald Trump trying to close the pores in the border is not the problem. The problem is you will not secure the border. And now they're dismantling parts of the border wall. And it's getting worse. Del Rio is in the Val Verde County, which voted for Trump in 2020. Some residents in this sprawling bilingual border town say they feel abandoned by the federal government on border security. Are they doing anything to stop them from coming? One woman said while she looked down at the encampment while driving over the bridge. Carlos, a 27-year-old Venezuelan, who said he left his home after graduating university in July, said he thought the camp had doubled in size since he arrived on Tuesday. Carlos, who declined to give his full name, said he had only $10 left and that there were 400 families ahead of him in the queue for processing. Both migrants and Mexican officials said many more people are expected in the coming days. Some told Reuters they had chosen to cross here because the river is shallow and they felt there was comparatively less cartel activity. Jeff June, a 27-year-old Haitian, who was reselling water bottles for 3 pesos, 15%, a 15-cent profit, said he and his young family were exhausted, hungry, and sleeping on the ground. He fretted about his kids falling ill in the makeshift camp. My 10-year-old asks, when are we leaving? He's always asking that. Why did you come? How about we ask this? I can respect that people are suffering in certain places. But just because a country, Haiti, how did they get into Mexico? I'm sick of playing this game. They take a boat to Mexico so they can get in the country. Our southern border is such a disaster that people are flying from Africa to Brazil, coming up through South America, through Mexico, through Central America and Mexico to try and come to our southern border. Because Joe Biden is allowing it. And they know it. But what do you think happens when you let every single person in? It will cause a collapse. You ever see those videos? We got all those people standing on like a balcony and they're all like dancing and the balcony collapses because people are just not paying attention. There is a weight capacity. There are finite resources. They don't seem to care. I saw one video. It was horrifying. It was a family had a balcony, and this is actually kind of a smart idea, but you know, it's like clever but dumb. They lined plastic on their balcony up to like the railing, and then put a hose in it to fill it with water, so they'd have a swimming pool. Yeah, I think that one. I'm pretty sure that collapsed because balconies can't hold that much weight and water is heavy. So let me explain something to you. When you just say, everybody come on in, anywhere and everywhere, you're telling us we're overpopulated. You're saying that we should stop having kids because of the environment. But then you're saying everyone should flood into one of the highest carbon producing countries on the planet. They're lying. They're evil. Not all of them. Some of them are just dumb. But when they say climate change, they say we got to reduce our carbon footprint. Then they say we got to bring in as many people as possible. Also, you shouldn't have kids. You realize there's a problem here, right? If we're producing 25%, I don't think it's 25%. If we're producing a large portion of carbon emissions and someone comes from a country that doesn't and they come here, they will now have a much larger carbon footprint, which will be substantially worse. If you're going to come out and say the best thing you can do for the environment is not have kids, and then tell people we need more migrants because we have too many job openings and not enough people willing to work. Something doesn't make sense there, does it? You're going to make things substantially worse for the world and the country. But maybe that's it. Maybe the whole thing they have is a grift. They don't actually believe what they're saying because their ideas make no sense and contradict each other. In the end, all that really happens is the United States continues to fall apart. So what do? We need to vote out this man. That's first and foremost. Can we make it to 2024? I certainly hope so. But we need to get Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Pelosi, all these Democrats out. I hope stories like this, videos like this are a wake-up call. When you see these images of people, look at this image right here of the 10,000 people under a bridge. And most of them aren't even, it looks like a lot of them aren't even under the bridge because there's no room left under the bridge. Will people understand this? Will they push back and will they challenge it? I don't know. With the Biden administration banning drones, you're not going to be able to see the surge. Why? If they've gone from 6,000 to 10,000 in a matter of days, 2 weeks, you can't fly drones. What do you think it's going to look like in a week? Is it going to be an exponential growth? Is it going to be 20,000? Don't you think the American people want to see that? Understand what's happening to their country? Unfortunately, a lot of them just don't pay attention, don't care, and will continue to vote for their own destruction. So here's what I can say. We should build culture. We should rally around making books and movies and all that stuff. We should become self-sustainable. Y'all should find make a homestead, grow your own vegetables, raise your own meat, Get yourself some goats and some chickens out in the middle of nowhere and be ready to have to do that work to survive. Because right now, the leadership of this country seems to be doing everything in their power to destroy it. And if it comes to the point where China becomes the dominant economic power, the petrodollar fails, I hope y'all understand how much work will need to be done. Now, don't get me wrong. I assume most of you watching already know the value of a good day's work. Get some rough skin on your hands. I used to lift 50,000 pounds per day doing baggage at the airport. Man, and it was tough. Come home, you're tired, you're sore. Good exercise, though. So what do you think's going to happen when we lose the petrodollar? When we can no longer command these other countries, and it's happening. When the U.S. breaks apart, it will require you to do a lot of work. Here's the funny part. Conservatives, red states, they don't care. It's all ready. You drive around West Virginia, everyone's got chickens. Everyone does. Fresh eggs in the morning. I don't go to the store for eggs. I just go outside, pick them up. Well, the chickens are brooding right now. We're letting them have babies. So for the time being, we just don't have the eggs because we've eaten as many as we can. And we're going to have a ton of babies in like a week or two. But, it just feels like it's all coming down, doesn't it? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.